Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good day wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the next episode of No Dice, No Glory. Sponsored by our jobs that actually pay us money, we're coming to you not at all live from an abandoned arms factory deep under a mountain in West Virginia. We are proud to proffer to you the finest in wargaming coverage. Without any further ado, let's get this show on the road.
Hey, once again, thank you for the rousing. I always say rousing. Sean is a rousing guy. But we're back once again, and we're changing gears a little bit. We're not talking about a miniatures game like last time. We're talking about, and I'm a little biased here, one of my favorite game series, and I'm going to say going back to the 90s. But from Wargame Design Studios, we have Rich Hamilton on the show. Welcome, Rich.
Hey, good to see you, or good to hear you. Thanks for
Hear
having
ya.
me on.
I'm not much to look at. I'm not much to look at. So, first question I'm going to hit you with is, what was that first game you played that changed your life and led you here today?
I would say that specifically set me on the road that I'm at now is probably Battleground Gettysburg from John Tiller, published through Talonsoft.
You remember that?
That was probably 1997. I
Oh,
had
yeah, it was.
previously board games and miniatures, had kind of fallen away from that, went into the Navy, didn't take a lot of that with me when I went in, and then came back out and stumbled upon a Gettysburg box when I was in I think it was a Computer City or a Comp USA, one of the big box stores back in the day, and I was absolutely hooked, and that set me on this path.
I tell you what, it's so like myself. I played my first game when I was 11, and I haven't grown up much since then. A lot of people can tell you that. But it was going into a big box store, Colorado Springs. It was 96 and or 97, I don't remember. And seeing the Battleground game, and I played the heck out of that thing. I I cannot tell you how, because the replayability, and back then it was groundbreaking. There was nothing like it.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
it was such a good series. And then how'd you get started with John Tiller? And back then it was HPS.
Yeah, actually, I got started with John prior to HPS. He was at the tail end of his publishing time with Talonsoft.
Mm-hmm.
He put up the scenario editors for the Civil War battles and the Napoleonic Battle series up on his website, or the Battleground series.
Yeah.
And so downloaded the editor, and I started making custom scenarios, and I was sending them to John, for him to post on his website. And one day he was like, I probably was starting to annoy him because I was sending him so much stuff. And he's like, "So, hey, would you have any interest in like running the scenario depot for me?" So I've spun off my
That
scenario
was you.
design center. Um, and
That,
yeah,
that was you.
yep.
Wow.
So started hosting all that, and then probably, I don't know. I think it was that was probably 98, and then I met John in person the following year, and he demoed to me and a few other guys campaign 1776. Um, so that was he was breaking away from Talonsoft. He was going to start publishing with HPS, and he demoed that for us, and I was enthused. Helped get that across the finish line, and then shortly thereafter he asked me if I wanted to do a game, and my first game was War of 1812.
Which I own the original. And for those of you guys that don't, matter of fact, I got you a customer today. Um, New guy on our website. He's going to be one of our writers. And I said, hey, I'm doing, an interview with this. So he sends me a message today and he goes, I'm thinking about getting Poland 39. What do you think? And I go, they're all good. Um, with the Panzer campaigns, pick one that you like, and you should be good. But I am more partial to the Panzer battles, but we're not going to talk about stuff in the 20th century today because I know you're not the guy. But
Yeah,
I
I'm definitely a musket head, so
there's nothing wrong with that. So, uh, you know, I didn't know you were behind Scenario Depot WDS. So, I mean, the SDC. So, I've technically been stalking you for years. So,
oh yeah.
it's really good to talk to you. And I remember like there, and people could post things. It was friendly, and I thought that was really, really kind of cool. So here we are years later, and we did a in memoriam for John, and I never got to meet him, but I, used traded emails with him a bunch of times, and I think, well, I know that, and I think I mentioned this when we had Dave Freer on from WDS. I go, he doesn't probably realize how much he changed computer wargaming, even before his passing. Like he really changed that landscape.
I would agree with that, and he was a very humble guy. He was just a really good guy. I remember saying when he passed, he was the best boss I ever had. And I worked with him for over 20 years. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, I think he did. I think, maybe it's not so evident on today's landscape, but definitely where we've come from, and there's still things that are in the games today, like the multiplayer module, where
Hmm.
you can have two or three different people on either side playing. The change in the IP scheme on the internet's made that a little bit harder to connect, but it's a fantastic way over a LAN, and you can use like a VPN or whatnot to connect over the web. But that's still some functionality that a lot of other war games don't have in it. So, but yeah, he was a very solid designer, and had a lot of concepts. He was he could do things, he could abstract things, and they were very elegant. We'd come to him with a problem and say, hey, we want to make this and this change, and he'd come back and say, well, let's just do this one thing, and it solved all three of the problems. He was amazing like that. He was a very
He was.
talented individual.
Oh yeah. And the thing I have to say about all of his designs, because he did, oh, I forgot the Jason Petho redid the one for Vietnam using that engine, and he had like West Front, East Front. That was him as well, if I'm correct, right? The
Yeah,
Talentcroft, yeah,
there, he was the head on that. There was several other
yeah.
programmers, but that was he was the lead.
The replayability you get out of any game I think he touched or kind of had, even now, I would say all the games still have so much of his DNA in it, but
Yes.
they're so playable. And then to make sure, you guys are now putting like 80 to 100 scenarios.
It depends on the game. For
Uh,
example, the latest title has 148 scenarios in it. Uh, in all fairness, it was the American Revolution. You're covering a 6+ year conflict, so
yeah.
we want to be as complete as possible. So,
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the that game, but I definitely want to talk about its predecessor. So it's funny because I think I have almost all your games. That's the one I reload most often, the 7076 game,
really,
because
okay.
it just is, because there's no other game that kind of covers it like that. And growing up outside of New York City, I used to go jogging at Stony Point Park.
Hmm.
Um, and I living in Northern Virginia. I was just driving by Williamsburg the other day in Yorktown. It's that history that's always there, but will most often kick me to redown or to reinstall it is I'll read a book, and I think the last time I finally watched Turn about Washington spies.
Yep. Yeah, I've seen
And,
it.
yeah, and it was just a couple of months ago, and I'm like, I got to go play a game about some of this, and re-downloaded it. As soon as I knew you were redoing this game, I'm like, great, because the engine now is so much better than it was before, and I definitely want to go into that. But I think the American Revolution game, for anybody out there that likes the American Revolution, look, I'm going to plug it. That's why you're here, right? We're here to plug. It's a great game. In 148 scenarios, you can't go wrong. There's almost too many, in my opinion. And, the new engine and the artwork. So it's part of the series. What is it? The Pike and Musket series?
It's musket and pike. And
Musket and
so
Pike.
that's everything from, you know, the Renaissance period, where very early gunpowder and lots of pike blocks and things of that sort, all the way up to the dawn of the Napoleonic Age. So everything in between, that series covers that whole blanket.
Yeah, it's, I think I have some of 7 Years War games that are part of the series.
It is.
And it's interesting because I know so little about the 7 Years War, but I had to get it. So now I have it. I know something about, Friedrich the Grosse, but when you guys took the existing engine for that period, what changes, tweaks did you make to get this final product we have today? Because it could not have been easy.
Um, well, creating these games is not easy. I mean, this particular title was in development for a little over 3 years. So you mentioned the predecessor, Campaign 1776. Well, we carried nothing over from that. So every single map was completely rebuilt. Uh, all the OOBs redone, all the graphics redone, everything. From the ground up, this is a completely new game. Um, so just the amount of research. I don't know if you know him, but the Sharp End Gaming on Facebook. Uh,
Yep.
he's also a New Yorker. He actually lives in Arizona now, but he's been amazed at the level of detail and all the things from his stomping grounds that he's picking up. So just the level of research that has gone into this. We're using geo-referenced maps as our source material to create the game maps. So they're far richer and more detailed and more accurate than anything that had done was in the original. Um, as far as the engine goes, um, there's a variety of configurable files. So one of the reasons we wanted to move to this new engine, the Musket and Pike, over the EAW engine, is we can configure um, victory points, movement rates, and all sorts of different attributes per unit. Um, where in the original EAW games, like all the infantry moved at the same rate. Doesn't matter, there's no differentiation between training and doctrines or anything like that. You had no ability to vary. Um, so we can do victory points on the per unit basis. So if you have an elite unit, we can make them worth more points. So to give the player the incentive to use them sparingly or be wise, not be careless with them. Um, so gosh, there's just so many things. If you go up to our site and just look at, say, the Renaissance game and pull up the change log. The Renaissance was the first title in the Musket and Pike series, and that was published under HPS back in 2012. And you'll look at that change log, which is many, many pages of enhancements that have gone into the engine over the years. And so all of those have been able to be capitalized on ARW. So all that work that's gone in there, we've been able to put forth into this new title.
Yeah, I was going to ask how much did you take, and my guess, even when I first started playing it, about what a little over a week ago, and I've been playing the heck out of it, by the way. That it plays, so much different than the old one, and I just didn't think there was that much DNA in it. You mentioned orders of battle. A lot of times I'll get asked for like, where can I get this order of battle? And I will always tell them, in your games, you guys have the best order of battle with strengths and the break. There's a lot under the hood for this game, and I think one of the tightest things is that order of battle. So when I had to work on a game for the Arab-Israeli wars from the '73 game, I
Hmm.
took that order of battle because it was so tight, and all the research I know that you guys do for these games is pretty freaking amazing. The it's one of the things. It's that replayability, it's that authenticity, and it's a game engine that you could play solo, and it's not going to insult you. Now, I'll make an admission here. You know the AI slider.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, the
I use
advantage slider.
Yeah, I'll crank that to the left. Um, and it's so I could feel better about myself and nothing more. But going to WDS, and it's wargameds.com, which you guys could find on the bottom of the podcast when it goes out, and the article. Check it out because there's something in there for you because you guys cover so much. I even picked up the Age of Longbow not too long
Okay,
ago because I do 100 Years War in miniatures. Actually, I just started that a couple years ago.
nice.
And yeah, and I really like that game as well. It's, it's all the games are just packed and fun. The naval games, the air games. We want to talk about, definitely the, 18th, 18th century stuff that you work on. So looking at, go ahead, sorry.
I was, I'm responsible for um, everything prior to World War One. So all the time periods, all the way back to the Crusades, I managed the Sword and Siege series as well. But then I also manage the modern or the real time series, the naval and the air series. So I'm
Okay.
not as much as a
Musket head.
I am more of a musket head, knowledge wise, as far as European history and other and North America, of course.
Yeah.
But I do manage the real time series too. So
Yeah, and those games, because I remember the first time I reached out to John was I'm retired Air Force when I was on air staff, and you guys had the contract with Maxwell,
right.
and we wanted to use it for a game engine for training. And I have what Decisive Action I think was the one that you did for professionals.
That's Jim Lunsford.
Jim
So
Lunsford, yeah,
theater air power visualization
yeah,
or modern air power,
right,
either one of those names were used, but was for the government contracts.
yeah, and it was so helpful and great series. So far with the Musket and Pike, we've done 7 Years War, and I think there's two games.
No, there's one 7 Years War, then you have War of Austrian Succession or
Okay.
War of the Austrian Succession,
Mm-hmm.
um, the Renaissance, uh, Great Northern War, Vienna 1683 is the demo for the series. That's a free
Mm-hmm.
demo that anybody can download and play. Um, and then you have American Revolutionary War.
Yeah. So I'm trying to see how many of them I have. I have more than the two I mentioned, but once again, I'm loyal customer. Um,
Oh,
from going,
30 Years War as well. I spaced out and
yeah.
forgot that one.
Um, yeah, I have the web page open here, and it's like there's looks like 7 titles so far. I have a bunch of them. So from that Renaissance musket and pike period, even to the Revolutionary War, warfare changed quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Um, how was the game able to? Is the engine that flexible and fungible that you didn't have to make massive changes as you're going forward in history?
Yeah, not massive. We did introduce a couple new features for this engine or for this game. Open order. Um, so when obviously the colonials, the colonists and whatnot, and their Indian allies and the mountain men and whatnot, they were more adept at fighting in broken terrain and forest and whatnot, taking advantage of uh, the trees and terrain features to hide behind. So they would. It's almost a quasi skirmish order, but a little more dense than that. And then as the British started adapting to the environment more, they also adapted an open order formation. So we added that to the engine, and by doing so, it increases the frontage of the unit, so it mimics extra space in between men, so they're less susceptible to fire. So they'll take I think it's 25% less casualties from ranged fire. But they're also able to move through forest and orchard terrain without disordering. So just trying to replicate that style of fighting that was prevalent during this war. Um, and then we added, not necessarily for this title, but for other games that we have in development in the pipeline, but ARW was the first one to be published with it, was the new column of march formation. Um, which I really like. I've always had a little bit of heartburn. You put a unit in column and it can run down the road and immediately launch into a melee. And I've never felt that that was an accurate representation of the way units would fight. Um, so in order to get road movement bonuses, you have to be in column of march, at least at the battalion level scale games. So when you have two, three, 400 man units, they have to be in column of march, which replicates being strung out, in a column of march. Um, but they're very vulnerable in that. So you don't fight in that formation. So as you come up into a known contested area, you close up into a standard column or go into line, and then you can conduct combat. So that's going to be a pretty significant change for veteran players of the engine, getting used to using that. And but I think it's a fantastic uh, enhancement. I think it really it improves the flavor of the games that we're modeling. Like in the modern games, you have travel mode, right?
Yeah.
Panzer campaigns, they're travel mode. Well, that's not a combat formation. Well, likewise, when you've got a whole, couple thousand men on the march, covering long distances, they're not necessarily ready to fight immediately. So, anyways, I think that's a pretty big addition.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I played the heck out of it. And when I mean, I probably played a good 20, 25 times. I didn't even notice that. So let me go to a unit here because I have it open. Yeah, I'm
Well, it
cheating.
depends on the level. So the company level scenarios. Now, when you're in the file selection dialog box, you're looking at all the different scenarios. It'll
Right.
tell you whether it's a company level or a battalion level. So company level, you have very small units, okay? So the column of march is not used for those because the unit's already tiny, 25, 30 man units. But it's if you choose a battalion level scenario, that's where you're going to see it.
All right. Let me go. I'm sure everybody here can see exactly what I'm doing. But okay, hit manual for both. The maps are striking, by the way. I really like the maps. And what's cool about the maps is because I got into the Fort Washington one, it
Mm,
it it's changed for the season.
yes.
I thought that was pretty neat. So let me go to a unit that's not. Now, does the unit have to be large?
So in the battalion level, um, all units need to be in column of march to take advantage of road movement. Okay. You can move around as a column, no problem. But then you just pay the movement cost of the underlying terrain. So if you are moving across clear, well, you pay a clear hex or a field. Or if you're moving through the trees, well, you're going to pay it the tree cost. You see what I'm saying? Uh,
Yeah.
but to get that increased movement allowance, you need to be uh, in column of march.
Okay, and I see it
So you
now. It says
obviously
March.
you didn't go through the tutorial.
No, I don't.
That
I,
was one of the first things I covered in that. I wrote the getting started tutorial.
you know, I should, because with all the games, you've really jazzed up the engine. There's so many like little nuanced things in there. So I'll tell you what, tomorrow, and then we'll just record for another hour tomorrow. No, I'm only kidding. Yeah, you do need to go. I think the veteran players like me just jump right in. But being that you said that, I think the advice I'll give from here on in is, hey guys, do the tutorials. Because they do make a difference. Now it's because you could download the rules, the book, and
Correct.
it's not a thin book if you print it out.
No, you can actually on the website, if you go to the product page,
Yeah.
there's an updates and downloadable files on the right.
Yeah.
You can download the user manual, scenario editor manual, quick reference guide, getting started guide, and then the design notes. So, several hundred pages of reading between all of those documents to really see, what's involved with the game.
Several hundred, folks. Several hundred.
Well,
That
the design notes in and of itself I think it's 145 pages, if I'm not mistaken. And that includes not only the scenario designer's thoughts and what he did, why he made certain decisions. There's a historical background. We have information on the unit graphics, what research was done to bring those together, the 3D units. Also, we licensed Don Trione's work for the unit portraits
yeah.
in the hex info area. But then also every single scenario, the background on them, and then the descriptions of them, so you can get a handle just in that design notes document to get a really good handle on what's included with the game.
All right. So here I see under the formation, it is change charging, change extended line, and then it's change formation. That's pretty cool. That I never noticed that, and I gotta now play around with it. I'll do a tutorial, and I'll tell you
It,
how it went.
that'd be
You
great.
know,
I mean,
because
there
you
is so much different between this engine and the EAW engine. I mean, there's just like no comparison between these two. This is so much more robust and so many more options.
what for players. The cool thing is it's so under the hood. So if you just want to go in, pick units, and mash buttons and
Yeah.
get a battle, you could do that. It's not a hard game to play. It's not Gary Grigsby's War in the East, which I think they used to torture people. Um, we got a free copy of it a few years ago. And we are like, all right, who wants to do a review of it? And I was like, I'm not doing it, so somebody else will. And I'll tell you what, he really enjoyed it, but it took hours of his day. But he's in Canada. What do they do for fun up there? I don't eat poutine, I guess. So it's when you look at the rules, it gives you the algorithms. It really kind of tells you how combat is computed. And I noticed when I read them, and this was a while ago, and I think it was for the 20th century stuff, the fatigue and the morale dropping, dealing with combat. And I think this is with the later engines, that you want your units to kind of rest up before you throw them in there,
Mhm.
because they're more combat effective. And the other one is, and I think it's going to be even more true in this period, is you got to know the capabilities of your units. Like I noticed I was doing Brandywine and had dragoons, and if I'm not charging with dragoons because that's not what they did. So I dismounted them in extended line and did a screen, and it was easier to pull them back to my main line. You know the scenario because I think you designed it, and going backwards. And then finally, when they kind of got out of danger, I remounted them and then got them out of there. But like, you're not going to use them to charge. Plus, cavalry charges didn't happen very much in the American Revolution.
That is
So
correct. Yes.
yeah, it is. It just studying warfare and how much like, well, that's a European thing, and yet mostly we did not do that, but it gets that flavor. So I did King's Mountain, where the British are surrounded and to come up and swamp. I had to be careful how I moved my units into place to come up. And these were small units that
Hmm.
shot really well, but I could tell from just looking at them, I'm not going to go into melee with these units. It's just not something they seem to be good at because historically, and I could have had that one wrong, but like I'm going to slowly take advantage, whittle down the British units, and then hope for a break. Where another thing I love about the game is if a unit breaks, it runs. If it runs through other units, and you could do route limiting. It's one of the things that you can click on off. But I always do that because that's how I go about focusing on a particular part of the battlefield, hoping to get those results by focus fire, and then boop, they're out of there. It's you really kind of get to use tactics of the period in all these games, but I noticed it is more crucial from playing the 730 years war games, and now this one that you really kind of, hey, I don't want my unit getting shot at from the sides, enfilade fire. I don't want that. The other thing I noticed too is cannons, right? Cannons were used differently in the American Revolution and other wars, and especially later on Napoleonics, that you kind of have to use them for their purpose. You have to sight them well. And I think that's what's great about the game. I think I own everything in the Civil War series, and that engine's been upgraded. That you really kind of have to look at the health status of your units, and then what do you need them to do, and to kind of give them that task, because you can have a real hard day out there. In I mean, you can. It's and some of
Yeah.
those I can't tell you. The other one is like, let's move to the Civil War. Only for a second, it's you've done everything I've heard from the Civil War. That's what Dave said. He goes, well, we've done everything. We have maps for everything. Somehow I feel that there'll still be a Civil War game coming out one day.
There. Yeah.
We'll
Well.
hit you for spoilers a little later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me throw out a couple comments.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, so the game engine, and this is a principle of John Tiller Designs that we've maintained, um, is you are rewarded for historical decisions, for using your units in a historical manner. You're not prevented from using them in ahistorical manners, but there's consequences for doing that.
Yes, there
Um,
are.
so like, you wanna push your troops to the limit, and max out their fatigue and what? Well, you can, but they're gonna run on you. So you have to be wise about that. And then going back a few minutes ago, where we were starting to talk about the depth and options that are available, and you were like, well, but it's pretty accessible too. And it really is. You don't have to. That's one of the beauties of computer gaming, I believe. Again, I got my start in board games and
What was that board
miniatures and
game?
whatnot,
We'll get
and
into
you
it
got you
after.
got your charts and you got to track all this. Well, the computer does that for you. So you can use what's called on map results, which is the default. So when you fire at something, it will flash the results on the screen. Um, and then when you go to do something else, the results disappear. If you want to get really granular, you can turn that off, and it brings up a dialogue, and you can see the modifiers and all the things that go in to the calculations. So you can get really granular if you want, but you don't have to. I mean, personally, when I play, I want to play the game. I want to execute a plan, play as historically as I can. but I don't want to get into the nitty gritty. I don't want to, you know, count out, every single hex, worry about what all my modifiers are. I want to just lead my men in battle and see whether I can get my objective conquered. And you can do that. If you want to be super granular, you want to get into every nook and cranny, you can do that too. Um, but it is very much a game. It's far closer to a simulation than a lot of products that are on the market. But at its essence, it is still a game. It is still enjoyable to play. It's not a spreadsheet math problem if you don't want it to be.
And there's definitely spreadsheets that run this game, and I think that's the beauty of it. When you talk about a simulation, that's usually human decision making pulled out. You could run the game using like formation orders, or I think you can. I've never done it, but you can get AI to play against AI and run it as a let's run this 50 times to see what happens. So the game is robust enough to do that, and not a lot of games are. Um, I keep on the modifiers, and I can tell you why. A lot of it is because I want to make sure that I'm using my fire as effectively as possible.
Hmm.
And I usually will turn it off after like, a week or two, a couple of weeks of playing it because, okay, this is how it's going to compute that. Like I said, I look for that weak link in the enemy and try to get that, okay, let's see, this is going to be the unlucky unit of this turn. And somewhat successful at it. Once I kind of know, hey, this is how that algorithm is computing it, because I'm a math guy. Yeah, I'm one
Hmm.
of those that you don't need it that much anymore. But I still think if folks really want that granularity, it's there. Because when you
Yeah.
see, and thank you so much for putting on the ribbon bars on top with all the choices and color coding them.
Right.
Because for me, it's like I could do what I need to do. I just have to know the icon to click. But there's never been a time in any of these games, and especially playing this for the last 10 or 15 days. I don't know. It's going to get longer as this podcast goes. That, you know, there's nothing I wanted to do historically using those units because I've picked up for a long time using period tactics to help. Um, that I couldn't do with the game. Where other games, well, yeah, I guess they just couldn't think of a crafty way of doing this. So I always make sure that, I've never had a problem or run into like a dead end in the game where it's like, hey, well, this is not realistic. Um, like I would say in the Civil War games, using artillery before you charge is a really good idea because it drives up that fatigue and
Hmm.
it whittles down your enemy, and then until you shoot up your ammo, which is I like how you guys do logistics in the game, as also a former logistician. So there's a lot of geekiness in here for me, but like you got to use those tactics for the American Revolution game. You have to change that mindset. You got to get around sides. You got to use those lighter units that the Americans have in the beginning scenarios, and try to get where because you do get modifiers for firing from the rear, firing from the sides. It's pretty neat. Like you do have to change your tactics because I think I've played a ton of games and I don't remember too many times of firing a an American cannon.
Yeah,
And
there's not a ton of them, so that's
yeah,
for sure. You kind of hit on it earlier. As the American, you want to snipe away at the crown forces.
mhm,
The crown is trained for the use of the bayonet. They want to close quickly and bring in the cold steel and break your units. Your guys are marksmen. They're light marksmen. They want to move, they want to shoot, and they want to avoid melee as much as possible.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, and that's pretty cool because yeah, when you pump the game up, it looks like the others, but you really have to know how units of that period play and be able to kind of leverage that in your game to have a better experience, in my opinion, which is winning, and then you just slip. If you're not, you just slide that advantage all the way to the left. Now, I always start off with it slid about halfway, but as I start learning the game, I start moving it back to the center because there is somewhat of a learning curve. Yeah, I didn't do the introduction. I get that, but like I usually do that when I get a new game. Is all right. Let me race the engine here, see what I can do, and then slowly start moving into. All right, now we're going to play it a little bit more even, and that's what I really like about this game series. All of the games, it's that replayability, because even if you just change the slider 20%, it gives you a different game. And the slider is extremely effective, folks, because I think in Kings Mountain, I had 9 people killed, and yeah, obviously the slider helped me out. The other thing with Revolutionary War battles, they were different than anything that came before, and they were way different than anything happened afterwards. Because when you look at like the bloody battles of the Civil War, we didn't have too many of those in the American Revolution. A lot of it was, okay, flank turn, I'm out of here, retreat. It wasn't like an Antietam,
Right.
with the
Knockdown,
bloodshed.
dragouts. Right.
Yeah, and I really kind of have to get into that mindset. Like, yeah, this will play differently. So hey, I am going to play it differently because it challenges, and I like games that do challenge me. Not
So
that much because of the slider,
right.
in
Well,
that
so
specific.
the AI, we've been working on the AI pretty consistently, really across all the series. But this engine has had quite a bit of attention paid to it. So I think anybody that picks it up will get a challenge out of the AI. You talk about replayability, though. Um, really, once you branch out and either uh, play by email, or if you want to do live connectivity either via LAN or through the internet. um, there's several different modes of play, but once you start introducing a human opponent, I mean, really there is no limits as to far as replayability. Almost the scenario is never the same once 2 people play, especially on a lot of these maps. There's some absolutely huge maps in this game
Yeah,
that gives the players lots of options. So they might have been, the forces are set up where they were historically heading, but that doesn't mean you have to stay on that path. You could, but you have 3 other roads that you could branch off and go other ways if you so desire. So the replayability is virtually endless.
yeah, I noticed that too because growing up in the New York area, I wanted to play Kips Bay, and
Hmm.
I most certainly wanted to play Long Island, but that is a huge, beautiful map,
Yes. Yeah,
and
Mike did an excellent job with the mapping. Mike Cox was the scenario designer for the game. He did a fantastic job with the maps.
oh yeah, the maps are because I remember like you would be able to at one time. I think from Scenario Design Center is the upgraded maps, and I remember I think the first one I saw that had that really kind of cool map was Waterloo, but it was like 2 gigs to download it,
Right.
and but it looked so much better. It was so worth the download that the maps are beautiful. I had to go through a bunch of turns. Also, thank you for putting in where you could speed the game up.
Yeah.
Um, to get the British anywhere close, and like I wasn't playing very long once we were in contact to say, yeah, I know how this turned out historically, but the Americans are really not the stay and fight kind of guys. So I started to learn from my own mistakes pretty quickly, and I said, okay, got it. And then I'll hit a new scenario because I wanted to get as many scenarios as possible. I didn't realize it was 148. And I know it says it right on the website. There's that many, but that's a lot. The other cool thing is not every battle is just one scenario in the game. There's multiple, and
Yeah, it varies. Some are a single instance, it was there's some scenarios that are included simply for historical completeness sake.
yeah,
Um, Lexington, I think is one. Not a whole lot happened there. There's not a lot of chance for variation's sake. The very small number of men were involved, but we have a scenario on it. But and then you have other ones, Brandywine. Well, there's three different variants of
yeah,
Brandywine. So it just depends on the situation and how much it lends itself to having variants.
yeah. I, and I'll say this: I make fun of this guy I know, Nate, who actually lives in Colonial Williamsburg area, and he has like thousands of hours at Hearts of Iron. I go, how do you do that? I couldn't do that. But I will tell you, of games in this series, I have spent 8 straight hours playing them, and maybe I need to go to a self-help group. I don't know, but like I can't think of too many games, and it's always that I'll do one more turn,
Yeah.
and I hate to tell you, as strong as you may think you are, have that iron will of a war gamer, which means you don't. That you hit it again to play yet one more turn, and I kind of like that with the game. It's kind of makes sense. Like I said, I'm a fan. I may be the worst person to do this podcast because these games are that good. And then I was thinking, like I remember when we did it was the 150 for Gettysburg not too long ago. I don't know. The years are melding into one another.
No,
Um,
that's right.
yeah, and it's like you start playing more Civil War games, more Gettysburg games. Some of them are great, some of them eh. But if you're going to get that one game on the 250th to kind of play and learn about the American Revolution, there's no other game that's going to give you that experience other than this one. Was that a goal or a happy accident?
That was a goal. I mean,
Yeah.
the intent was to make this the most complete uh, treatment of the American Revolutionary period that's available on the market, period. And I think we accomplished that. I can't think of anything that even touches this in a single product.
Oh,
Um,
I'd say that ball is way over the home run wall.
yeah.
But then again,
Um,
I am biased.
yeah. So and then we're actually, so this is released in our store now. And then we're going to be releasing it. It'll be up on Steam for wish listing starting, I believe, on May 8th, with a release date on Steam for sale on July 4th. And then anybody that purchases direct from us gets a free Steam key. So you'll get the local copy, the one you can, install on your machine, or if you want to have one in Steam as well, you can.
I wanted to talk about that. That's from a business standpoint, that's a big change for you guys.
Oh yeah, it's a huge, huge shift.
Once again, no, you don't have to tell me any secret sauce, but was that something that you guys pondered for a long time, or it just made sense to reach a wider market? What were the pluses and minuses? And like I said, you don't have to go into any detail, or you can skip it. But
Yeah, I mean, really, some people have asked over a period of time, when are you going to go on Steam? Why aren't you on Steam? Uh, and really, both David and I felt that, it's like, well, why do we want to give somebody 30% of our revenue to provide a storefront when we already have our own storefront? Um, but then, we've got a
I
younger guy that's joined the team. He's in his 20s and he was enthusiastic about it. And then we just finally said, well, there's a good chance that we'll find new people on Steam that don't even know we exist. So these are really sales that we weren't going to get anyways. So it's it's not 30% of what we would have made, it's 30% of what we're not making now. So we've decided to go ahead and take the plunge. And it's even more than that because there's taxes and so on and so forth. So it's a hit. It's, when you're used to self-publishing, I mean, I was, with John at HPS, then helping run John Tiller Software, and now this. So I've been doing the self-publishing thing for almost 25 years now. So it's a big shift, but it's not our primary focus. It's we still release on our website first. Our direct customers are our priority, but we're happy to cater to the Steam community as well if it's there. So we'll just see where that goes.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to hit you up on email in probably by the fall of how many more folks are now enjoying these games because of the Steam platform. What Steam makes, in my opinion, yeah, uh, I've worked a lot of stuff that's now on Steam. It does take a bite, but the thing is, their reach is in the millions. And when you do a simple search, just put in the word Rev, this game that I'm looking at now is going to pop up, and somebody's going to go, let me try that. And I think that was a great way that you guys handled this. This is you're not losing 30, you're gaining 70% of what you probably didn't have. Because I will continuously, just because I'm so old school, keep going to the website and downloading the games from there. The I now it's great because popping on your webpage and showing somebody your game is good, but within Steam, it's just such a wider audience that I was just curious about that. I don't know how many Steam keys I'm going to throw in there. However, now is the later catalog stuff going to be also available on Steam, or this is just the first one for now?
Well, we have live today, Crusades Book 1 and 2 are for sale. So
Okay.
they went live on April 20th. Um, Age of Longbow is up for wish listing. It releases on May 22nd for sale. So ARW will actually be our fourth title up there. Um, as of this discussion, our plan is to go with all new games and heavily updated ones. So, 30 Years War, that's a WDS title. We're the only ones that published it. So pre or after John Tiller Software ceased. So that window of games now we're exploring some other things. I don't expect our entire catalog to go because for those that might be listening that don't know about us, we currently have 116 published titles in 12 different series. So yeah, I'm not sure all those are going to go up there, but we'll see. I mean, if just something just goes bonkers and it's an option, then we may very well do that. So.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, from a standpoint of speaking and talking to a lot of gamers, I always recommend your games. Like I said, hopefully somebody bought Poland 39 today. I don't know if he did. I can ask him while we're on. Um, that, I think you're just going to open up to so many new gamers. And I think you're still going to have folks. Well, let me check in Steam, you can go right to the web page and they're going to be like, wait, hold on. There's like another 100 and something games here. Um, I still think it's going to be win-win. If I'm wrong, we can have a show. You can come back and yell at me for a half hour.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. I mean, you almost have to. But like even today, our new guy was like going through all your. Well, which one do you recommend? And I'm like, all of them. I have favorites. Some I own that like squad battles. I don't play very often. I don't know why. Oh, I know why. Because somebody made me play ASL when I was 13. So, but like, when you guys went to the Panzer battles, that was like my wheelhouse. I really like how that game just flows. And once again, if you're into well, this is what engineers did. This is what these units did. It just it just works for that. And it's great to see like that game that I probably have reinstalled the most, which is the 7076 game now really updated. And I knew there was big changes. I feel bad I didn't go through the introduction. I will hold me to that.
Not
Uh,
trying to shame you, buddy.
it's humility. Humility is good. But it's I just, can't say enough about it. And I think, go back, listen to my interview with Dave. I am definitely biased, but play the game. Tell me if you're not. Because, even for the other titles, let's go to the Civil War. You guys have covered almost that entire war. There's nothing in that war I would like to play that you guys don't have. And coming out with the Forgotten Battles to me was awesome. I don't know whose idea that was. Thank them for me because that just got everything else. All those small little engagements that, whole books are written about. To me, that was like the topping on the cake because you could play the Battery Wagner Assault from Glory. And I think it's a beautiful map. It just was like I was happy when that came out, just like with all the other series, because it's not, hey, when you buy, most of the games have other battles. Like I think Shiloh has the Battle of Cornith that happened before. It usually has some of the preceding battles, and I think Gettysburg has Mine Creek, but I'm not sure.
Well, and it has Brandywine, or not
Brandy,
Brandywine, Brandy Station.
Brandy
Um,
Station.
yeah, so like Antietam, it's not just Antietam; it has First and Second Bull Run in it as well. So,
Yep.
just the title is kind of a misnomer. You really need to get in and like on. There's a page on for each product page. There's a tab that says included battles, and there's a whole plethora of battles. So it's usually more of a campaign. So a campaign flowed this way, and all the battles that included in that campaign would be in the title. And then like First Bull Run, it just made sense to include that with Antietam because you're already including Second Bull Run. It's the same battlefield, only a year apart. So just included that.
I
And then
just drove through it.
yeah, some other items that what to your point with your friend, well, which game should I get? Well, generally the answer we give is the subject matter that interests you most.
That's
Um,
yep.
because our engines, when we have a series, all of the games in the series get an update. So, um, Donbus 43 just came out. So another round of updates are going to be coming out here late spring, early summer for the Panzer Campaign series. So what is it? 32 titles in the series, and all of them are going to bump up to the latest engine. So you have the same core functionality available to you in every game in the series. Um, so it really boils down to the subject matter that interests you most. Um, and we're in the process of updating the Musket and Pike series now that we have a new game out, ARW, right? So 30 Years War has already been updated, and all the other games in the Musket and Pike series are going to get an update as well.
Which what I love most of all about, and this started with HBS and it continues now at WDS, is that you guys don't abandon your games. That every time I get an email and I go look, there's an update for a series, and I like that. A lot of companies are like, we put it out and we moved on to other projects. Now, there was a guy I think that wrote some stuff for you, Don. He lives in Northern Virginia, and I forgot his last name. Um, but I met him actually at a professional war game because we both work in that field, and he was going through about all the research that's done. I mentioned it with Dave. That has to be exhausting. And who
It,
checks it?
it's a labor of love.
Yeah.
Um, Well, I mean, there's a design process and then there's a play testing process. Um, So during the design process, you have the scenario designer pulling the details together. You create a bibliography and notes and whatnot to reference where you're making your decisions from. And then it's kind of vetted by the play testers, and because the people that are play testing are enthused, interested in the period, and so they'll question there. Oh, and then our customers will be happy to grill us if we've missed something, or which is really fun when you got a game that we still support, but we didn't do ourselves. Say any number of the HPS games that were published 20 some years ago. And, there is new research available now that wasn't available back then. And so, we get taken to task sometimes of that. And it's like, well, A, we weren't the scenario designers, and B, we didn't have that information available. So, when possible, we go in and update that information. So, but in a case like we just did with ARW, if if we feel that we have a ton of new information and we can do a whole lot better job than what was originally published, we reserve the right to completely replace a product too, like we just did. And I feel very confident that, as to use your terminology, we knocked it out of the park
Yep.
with ARW. I mean, you know, this is infinitely, and our pricing is the same, you know, 39.95 for a game. I mean, you can't even take your wife out to dinner for 40 bucks. And
Well,
just for the order
I
of battle
mentioned
included.
I play these things for 8 hours, so who has time to take their wife out for dinner? Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's funny because we were watching the hockey game the other day, and she's like, "Can you turn the war off?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And I for Waterloo 100 years ago, I think it was the late '90s. I was one of your play testers,
Okay.
and
That 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 was 2000. We published that in 2005.
yeah, it could have been for that. It was one of the. I think it was a Talonsoft game. It was one of the first Napoleonic ones, and I remembered when the grenadiers would fire, it would sound like a cannon. I remember sending you guys that information, and but you guys followed up right away. The other one too is your customer service is amazing, and that is you, sir. Um, Whenever I shoot
Yeah.
you an email, like right away, that bam, you guys are right on it. And I think that is also pretty, because you don't get that from other companies. And a lot of it is because, you mentioned labor of love. You didn't have to say that as a long term fan. You could see it in the product. The amount of research, like I said, I steal your orders of battle to make sure mine are correct for other games because it's tight. And I think I mentioned that to David too. It's like, bam, I don't have to go and double check your orders of battle. They're always spot on, and they're extremely detailed. I dig that. You know, the whole series to me, all of them, it's just such a fun playing experience. And the price point, you made a great point. The price point is amazing because I've been with you guys for 1,000 years. It seems like from all the way from the initial games, just like yourself, to today, and it's never been ultra expensive. I think the first copy I got, a disc one, was around the same price you're selling the online games for now, and that was a physical product. And that's great because prices have gone up considerably in almost 30 years. Has it
Right.
been 30 years? Oh yeah, I think it has. Man,
Since John was publishing with Talonsoft, yeah, it's because he started in the early, like, 94, I think, was he
yeah,
started publishing with Talonsoft. 94, 95 at latest.
yeah. And like I still have a ton of the old games too. The other cool thing about John's games, we could just talk about him. Like I had Jason Petho on, who redid the Middle East game, and he did the Vietnam game, and it took them years to do that research and working with that engine,
Yes.
and it shows, and it's a great game. It's different than the other ones or since because it's other people are doing it, but it's still that John Diller attention to detail and playability is there. And the other one is the player agency that I think he installed in every game. Lets you make decisions how you want to make them, even if they're bad. Um, they're in the games up until today, and that's why I'm like, this guy kind of changed how we war game on the PC without a doubt. I remember the excitement when you guys had the app games that you could play on, an iPad, and I didn't we all
Right.
think that that was going to be the next big thing? I did.
Yeah, I mean, John did it because of his government contracting. They
Yeah,
wanted him to cover as many bases as, uh, and we, while we have the licensing for those, we have that software and whatnot. We let all of that expire when we took over,
yeah,
um, because it's a constant moving target. I mean, you know, almost every week Apple's coming up with something new, or um,
yeah.
they're just like, you got to do this, you got to do this to stay in the store, you have to do this. I mean, you're just you're constantly driven for a product. I mean, John was selling them for what, 3.99, something like
Yep,
that.
yep,
And it's like, okay, that's that's not sustainable. That's a whole lot of effort for, and we don't do, John never did, and we wouldn't either, in-game purchases and whatnot. So,
yep.
we're not into milking people. We don't do DLCs. We don't charge for. We offer free expansion packs for our games and whatnot. So we're just not out there to milk the customers. So it's just not a good business model for us to. I'm not going to say we'll never do the mobile apps if we have a whole lot of programming underway. Um, a year from now, you're probably going to see a completely new user interface on the games.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Hopefully more modern, more accessible to younger people and more modern systems. Um, but if once we get through that, if we got people standing around twiddling their thumbs, haha, maybe we will throw the mobile apps together again. But right now, there's just there's no bandwidth for that.
Which and I'll say this too, and you're 100% right with Apple, which is why Slytherin and Matrix stopped doing games there when they came out with the totally new software. That
Hmm.
it just was too much. They kind of once again, Apple. I do have an iPhone, and I'm sure I'll hear bad stuff on my iPhone about this because they're always listening. That I think the rules of the App Store kind of ruined that. I think it's come and gone. And now you can get who wants an iPad when my phone can do everything better, just smaller. So, but back in the day, everybody had, but I think my iPad is years old and I don't even know if I turned it on today, if there's juice in it.
Yeah,
I
mine
mean,
wouldn't
it's,
turn on.
yeah. So, I mean, it's okay, fine. But I think that came and went. I think phones got better, phones got more accessible, and I think that's where we are. But I played the heck out of those games back in the day. Like I said, big fanboy. So let's talk about future titles. I don't know, I know that stuff you guys could talk about, stuff you can't, but you did War of 1812, and I love that game too because it forced me to read and learn a lot more about the War of 1812. And it's the worst name for any war. You know, uh, you know, you know what's funny I find about that? The 1812 overture. Oh my God! Everybody thinks it's about the War of 1812, and I would always say it's about a war that happened in 1812, but not the one you're thinking about. But is that going to be a future title, or we're going to hit you up for what you can spill?
Well, so I'll be specific on the titles. So we have retired the EAW series. because we weren't going to update the engine, and I just didn't feel right continuing to sell something that I knew was tombstoned. Um, it just, it wasn't going anywhere, and it was way behind. John just never really put much energy into that because government contracting took his
Yep.
main thing, and the series, EAW, it had run its course, Early American Wars. So we retired that. So anyways, we've replaced, ARW is the first one out. Um, we have plans for all the other content uh, to come in, either how to word that without tipping my hand too much. All the other content will be addressed in some fashion. Um, m- a good chunk of it will move to the Musket and Pike series. At least one title will go to a different series that has yet to debut. Um, so, all of it's got a home plan. We're not abandoning any of the early American content, but we're going to redo it, to the level that we've just done with ARW.
You
So
know, I just looked at the web page, and you can't even get that game anymore. I don't know when you
right.
guys took it off.
It was last summer, I think. So you have it in your store account still.
Yeah. Hmm.
Anybody that bought it originally, you can log into your store account and you can download it and play it all you want. We just don't sell it anymore. Um, so some people are advocating us to, put it on GOG, or put it on Steam or something like that, and I'm like, you know we've got a better product here. I don't know that I want to, and we're not bargain basement people. I mean, we if we're going to sell it, we want to support it, and if we're not supporting it, we make changes. So anyways, all of that is being addressed at one stage or another. Nothing else is really soon. In the EAW series, nothing else is going to come out in 2026. But we are actively working on getting all that stuff replaced.
Yeah, which, I'm not complaining. Once you've played the new engines for the ones, because, like, with the 20th century stuff, I think you did Europe first. Um, was the first, I think, for the new engine, the new artwork. I didn't want to play any of the other theaters just because the game just looked better and felt better. So, yeah, I mean, you can play the legacy stuff, but to be between me, you, and the lamppost, there's a huge difference, both in aesthetics and gameplay, that you don't want to go backwards. But yeah, I don't know where I was last summer, and I'm really sorry I missed it. But yeah, I mean, I like playing that. It was different. And then you guys had you guys did the Mexican American War, right? In the
Right.
old, right,
So
which,
that'll go to a new series. I guess. So we, especially me, uh, don't really like to talk too much about what's coming,
yeah,
um, because I don't like
people want it.
fanfare. Um, but that Mexican American War is going to go into a new series called Rifle and Bayonet.
Hmm.
And as you can probably surmise, that is going to pick up, um, covering basically from, you know, after the Napoleonic period up to, the eve of the First World War. So rifles, industrial revolution, and all of that. We've got a variety of games underway for that. Uh, if all goes well, the first one in that series will see the light of day this year. Um, you know, Generally we do a preview about 6 months before a game's going to hit the market, where we feel, yep, this is far enough along. We're pretty confident this is going to make it out the door. So, look, say late summer, possibly mid to late summer, for a preview of a new title from that series.
We're gonna have to have you guys back on.
Yep, there'll be a lot to talk about. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
ton I could say, but
No, it's
again,
fine.
it takes a while for things to. Again, ARW was under development for 3 years, so it takes a while to do this.
Yeah, because like the labor of love, and like I said, you can't beat the product. I think price point, product enjoyability. I've never heard anybody. If you're complaining about it, I'll give you your $39.95 back
Yeah.
personally. And I know I'll never have to do. Somebody will call me in on that. Oh, you made a promise. I go, come on, man. I'm a podcaster. My promises are worth nothing. So yeah, it's because there's like a lot of periods I see becoming popular, and people are screaming for games on it, but in a way they're not popular. Like I know guys that were doing a miniatures game for Franco-Prussian War,
Hmm.
and I said for the 15 people that are going to love and play that, you will make their day. But it's not a big audience. And then looking at, well, if you're going to do it on computer, okay, this is also a question that, or a statement I'm going to make because I'm totally biased. If somebody was going to do those conflicts, I would want it on one of your engines. Full stop. Full stop. Because I've had games from Talonsoft all the way to this week, always on my computer, and I don't go months without playing them. I would say once a month I will revisit a title. I can't see stopping playing the American Revolution War, because it's fun, it's interesting, it looks great, plays well. What's that? Less filling, tastes great. That I don't drink, but it was a commercial. But yeah, I mean, it's they're such good games. People are going to say you're way by. How much are they paying you? And I'm like, they're not. I'm a real fan. So that's what I'm excited about. I dig this game. I think that if you're looking for that one game that you don't have to set up counters and miniatures, and just as long as it's going to take, the setup is to play, then hit these games, because I've recommended the games throughout the years. I've never had anybody say, I don't like it. Never. Um, you guys supported a raffle I had not too long ago.
Hmm.
The people were just throwing in the bids for that just because the game system's that tight. Because I had your website. Well, hey, the picture here is small, and they had to put tickets in solo cups, which is so collegiate, right? Because it was at Army War College,
Right.
and yeah, and people are like, "Are these good games?" I go, "They're the best." I, one of the guys on our website works for Slytherin Matrix. I go, if you're a real war gamer, this is what you want to play. Because one of the things about the game series, and here's a big spoiler, it kind of goes back to the roots you and I have. If you like miniatures and you like board games, this game could look like either and plays better.
Yeah, I would agree with those statements.
Yeah, because I love the 3D, the models in the game. I would say with the modern stuff, I use the counter so it looks more like a board game. It really just depends what I'm in the mood for at that time. And to me, it hits that spot. So, longtime miniatures and board gamer, what are some of your faves? What do you still play today?
Today, I don't play much board games because uh, I have nobody around me that's a war gamer. That's my son-in-law is, but he's like Company of Heroes and Memoir 44 and stuff like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So we'll do a
Could,
little bit of that, but it's
could be
mostly
worse. Could
the
be worse.
well,
It could be
right.
Warhammer, you know?
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
The whole family will get together and we'll play, a variety of games. So there's not much in-person wargaming for me anymore. It's if I'm not doing it on the computer, I'm not doing it. So
Well,
um,
you live in Virginia.
I live in ultra rural Virginia.
I'll
I
tell you
am
what, I'll make a
down near
trip.
South Hill.
Don't even know where that is. But I'll tell you what, I'll bring something down if I'm ever in the neighborhood. We'll play.
That'd be good.
Yeah, what was it, last weekend? I played, not this past one, the one before. I played Napoleonic miniatures with a new game set, and now I got a couple of hundred naps to paint, and they're small 10 mm.
Nice. Right.
Yeah, and each unit stand looks like something from one of your games, and
Right.
it's if you like the aesthetics of miniatures, it has it, and if you like the feel of a board games, it's there, and it's, once again, biased. I'm totally biased. I'm willing to admit that, but I've never gotten a game I didn't like. There's some I play more than others. There's some that surprisingly I couldn't get enough of. Like you said, you did the naval games,
Right.
Spanish American War. You're gonna have to put new scenarios in there. I played them all so many
That's the
times.
free demo, man.
It's
It is what
free.
it is.
It's free. It's just I Pan Am. I've played in miniatures, and yep, okay, great. I love that game. It's very simple looking. It plays well. I would say from a guy that looks at, an ops research point of view, it gets it right. It doesn't insult you. You do get that, golden BB that will ruin your battle line, but it is a great game. And that's something to mention too. If you go to Wargame, the spelled Wargame, then ds.com, you go to free games, and there's 6 games out there that you can download. Squad Battles Grenada, because that was a rough weekend for the guys that were there. John, you know I'm talking about you. There's a guy I play miniatures with that he was there. And
Right.
I'm like, yeah, I mean, that was rough 24 hours. Quang Tree, which is older, and it was an app game. Then you have Musket and Pike Vienna, Span Am, Naval, Sword and Siege. I don't have that one, but it looks like something very old timey. And then the Modern Air Power one as well. So you could
Well, you
try
got
out.
4 more beyond that. Civil War Battles demo. There's the Final Struggle, which is the Napoleonic Battles demo.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Mia's
Mia's.
43 is the Panzer campaigns, and then there's the Panzer Battles demo too. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I didn't scroll up. Damn.
10 free demos. Um, and really, uh, the First World War campaign series is not represented, but it's very similar to Panzer campaigns and modern campaigns. Then Strategic War does not have a demo either.
Thank
Um,
God.
we might get a demo out for that later this year or next. So because we have a new game coming in that series as well as far as and some updates. So
I had the hardest time playing that game.
yeah,
I don't know why. And I think it was because I
it's a
think
totally different creature.
it's a totally different creature and it didn't scratch that itch. Like Panzer campaigns scratched my itch until Panzer Battles came out, and that was more my thing. The naval games are great, the air games are great, but like you find what you like within the catalog because there's so many games, so many
Different
periods,
scales.
different
Um,
scales.
yeah, I mean, it's strategic war is 10 kilometer hexes, where uh, the Panzer battles that's 250-meter hexes.
Yeah.
So totally different scale, total more detail. I'm more of a detail guy as well. I like you know to command my regiments. I don't really like at the division level or whatever. It's too abstract.
Yeah, and that's the what I think is one of the great things. If you want to go even lower, it's squad battles. Maybe for you, it's like I said, it's good. I like it. It's just never been my thing. I think the only one I still have on the computer is the Great War, because if it's Great War, I'll play it.
Hmm.
It doesn't make a difference because France 14 was one of my all-time favorite games for years. And that's the game I played 8 hours straight.
Oh
And
my.
yeah, like I think I forgot to go to the bathroom. It was like, and they're like, "What'd you do all day?" Stuff. Um, I think I was playing one of the Marne scenarios, and the maps are huge. And this is like the old engine too. And then I think I tried to do that with the East Prussia game that came out in that series, but
Hmm.
it is, it's that the opening phases of the war that I kind of like on the other front. It's playable. Like there's nothing I'll sit down for 8 hours, and
Right.
I think it was about 8 hours, and I wasn't skipping work. I think I was sick that day.
Yeah, you were sick. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. And but it was like chicken soup because I still remember. Oh wait, I got to go feed the dog or something. One more turn. They look healthy. They look healthy. They can afford to miss a meal. So yeah, it's like I said, it's you know really want to talk about the American Revolution game. Other than the fact is, you got to buy it. Even if you're a little interested in it, it's the 250th. Do something for the 250th. You know, get this game because it has kept me. All right, this, and then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll save it after turns because you can just save it, and I'll go back and try something different from a different point in the game, and I kind of really like that. So it's learning from your mistakes, huh? Because a lot of times you think, well, the computer gave me a bad die roll. Yeah, it happens. It doesn't happen that much. I like how you guys, little Markov chain action there. I really like it. But you go back and you learn from it and say, yeah, I have to do this a little differently. This wasn't that smart. And a lot of it is look at the capabilities I have, look at what I want to do, and then matching that. And I think that's fun. What players will probably see, just like I did with Long Island, the maps are huge and beautiful. You have a lot of fixed units. You're waiting for, but I realize if I'm going to play that again, I'm going to play as the British because they do a little bit more maneuver, and we all know how that turned out in real life. So it's kind of, you know, it's a game for you. So is there anything else I could say about this game that I haven't mentioned that I love?
No, I think you covered it.
Yeah.
I mean, for the Revolutionary War enthusiast, I think it would be extremely satisfying. I mean, we've covered a lot. Believe it or not, Mike actually has an expansion pack in the plans. I had to rein him in, otherwise he would have had north of 200 scenarios in the initial release. Um, but the expansion packs will be free to existing owners. So, again, we don't do DLCs where you got to buy the game for $20 and then we milk you for $8 or $10 repeatedly for the rest of your life. So,
And you guys
so
run sales twice a year.
yeah, so we got another our summer sale kicks off in the middle of June. Everything that's been released longer than a year is reduced 25%. Um, so not the new games don't go on sale until they've been out for a year. So what is it? It's April 17th. It'll be mid-April next year before ARW goes on sale.
Yeah, and look, not to criticize your marketing for guys like me, your sales are near worthless because I bought the game a year before. So it's like, and I think it's one of the first, of the, Great Northern, one of the games when it first dropped was like, yeah, I'll try it, take advantage of the sale. Yeah, but that just got me to buy a couple of more. So the
I'll
games
just
are,
throw it out there. We
yep,
have a game on sale every week. So we have a game of the week promotion. Like
yes,
this week is Jutland.
yep.
Um, next week is going to be, we kind of alternate between my games that I manage and Dave's games that he manage. So next week's going to be a Panzer Campaigns title, and then we'll go back and forth. So every single week, and those games are 25% off as well. So,
And
uh,
if I may say, a lot of places give us your email, we'll send you stuff, and I end up just like unsubscribing. I actually read all yours, and then now you're including articles I guess, from folks on your staff.
Yeah,
Um,
we've got a new guy, Thomas,
yeah,
who's absolutely prolific, um, and who's writing a bunch of articles. And then we've got a couple outside contributors as well. Alex, who did a bunch of the Napoleonic articles. Um, Gary, who's one of our scenario designers. He did a whole series on the musket and pike. We've got a couple guys that'll write on Panzer campaigns. So, anyway, so on Fridays we either publish an article or we publish a new game or we publish updates, something
yep.
of that sort. And then every Monday we announce a new sale game.
Yeah, which is great. So definitely just go to the website and sign up for it because it's. I think the articles are actually from a guy that also helps run a website that has articles. They're good articles, and you can tell the personality of the authors. They're a little different, which I kind of like. Which means you're editing. You don't have that tyrannical editor, and they all have to look
Well,
alike.
and well, we're very different than most websites in that, I'm not worried about space. We're a historical company. We want detail. We want people to be able to dig in, and then we have book recommendations as part of our articles too. And
Yes.
so we don't keep people, okay, well, you got 2,000 words, you better fit it in. Use what you want. If somebody's tired of reading, they won't read. But whatever. We're not gonna confine. Um, anyways.
One that came out a few weeks ago was The Art of Musketry and the Napoleonic Wars,
Uh huh.
and it's a great article because he explains like how it works. He explains it in terms of the game,
Yeah,
and
that's
he has
Alex. He's
it's
a
Alex.
yeah, he's a very enthusiastic Napoleonic player.
I but it shows, and he has the pictures of the ranks, and it's I really enjoyed that article. Matter of fact, I think after it came out, and it was just about 3 weeks ago, I think I played one of the Napoleonic games again, of
Nice.
course, and I dug that. I mean, that's kind of cool because a lot of game companies they get, especially in PC games, they get really big, and they're really about turning the money crank. But what I've always enjoyed is your game is for enthusiasts by enthusiasts, and it's always shown, and I really like that because I think the relationship you've built with me, and I'm hard to manage. Ask anybody I've ever married that that I've always been happy with you guys, and like I've always liked your products. So yeah, I'm gonna be continue to be a fan. I'm gonna get hate mail for this, but I'll take the hate mail. But try one of the games, and if you think I was going overboard, I'll refund your money personally.
Well, just even better than that, what we were just talking about a couple
Demo.
minutes ago. Go to the free demos. Doesn't cost you a penny. They are fully playable games. They have a lot less content than one of our full games, but they are fully functional. They have multiple scenarios in every one. The Civil War Battles demo has Bristow Station and Williamsburg in it. So two battles that aren't in any of the other games you get for free, and it's fully playable. So no risk.
No risk. So our new guy, Trench Pat, who hasn't written an article for us yet, so I sent him while we were talking, which one did you get? I'm mentioning you in the recording. He said he hasn't bought one yet, but he will be buying Battles for North Africa. So
Okay.
he took my Panzer Battles recommendation, but this was, hey, one customer. It's the least I can do for you coming on the show. But
We
yep,
appreciate it.
no, it's hey, and you guys always have an open invite. I love talking about your games. Like I said, there are times I talk to guys that don't really play their own games. And I kid you not, and I think it's worse in the PC space. That's why we don't have too many PC guys on. We have enough, but a lot of times when you talk to them, it's like, I'm not really into the history thing, and I'm not really I like making money. Um,
goodness.
Yeah, but who doesn't?
Right. Well, we all
Yeah,
got to make money, but
you all
you
got to
know,
make money. I
we're we're definitely tried and true hardcore war gamers
yes,
making the games that we play. I mean, that's absolutely.
yeah, it shows. Like I said, go try the demos. Tell me what you think. Drop us a line. We're not hard to find on Facebook, or just email the show. But there'll be a link down below. Wargame DS. You don't even need to click on the link. It's easy to remember. Hit it. Check out some of the demos. Play the demos, and then tell me about all the games you end up buying and what you think. Because I always tell people, and for World War II, you got 3 different series. I've already said which one's my favorite. It's always interesting when people tell me, well, this is why I like this one over that, but they're both really good. So, but Rich, thank you for coming on finally.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Mitch.
No,
Appreciate your time.
come back. Like, you guys are always welcome. And then we'll turn it back to Sean in the studio. But like I said, Wargame DS. Look, you're gonna love it. If not, like I said, my Mitch Reed's money back guarantee. But we'll turn it back to Sean in the studio and keep on gaming.
Thanks so much for joining the show tonight. Remember to follow us on Twitter at No Dice, No Glory, and keep the conversation going on NoDiceNoGlory.com, now featuring our own message boards. Have a great night, everybody.